The President of the United States has gone out of his way to talk tough, to act tough, and for the people that are still the true believers, of which he has millions, that still believe in him, there is this idea that they are somehow going to push back on the West Bank being annexed by the Zionist state. This so-called peace deal, which doesn't mean anything, we all know it doesn't, it is imperative that we understand that there is nothing that they are going to do to push back against the real president of the United States, which is what I think a lot of people are coming to terms with. So here's what Milikowski Netanyahu had to say when he was confronted about whether or not he was going to take President Trump seriously about backing off from annexing the West Bank.
נשיא טראמפ אמר מוקדם יותר בראיון לטיים, ישראל לא תספח את הגדה המערבית, כי אני נתתי את מילתי למדינות ערב. הוא אמר, אם נעשה את זה, נאבד את התמיכה האמריקאית. האם האמריקאים מכתיבים עכשיו מדיניות לישראל? מה תגובתך?
זה הרי תמיד תגידו, זה לא משנה. אני מאוד מאוד מעריך את התמיכה של הנשיא טראמפ.
So first and foremost, he has to kiss Trump's ass, let him know how much he loves him and how great a guy he really is and what a wonderful job he's doing. But we've got this. We know you mean well, Donnie boy, but trust me when I tell you, we have the right to defend ourselves with your money. That's what he would, but that's what he should say, if he had the balls to say. But he's a good politico with those that he needs to be a good politico with. He's a dead man walking as far as I'm concerned. But for the time that he's alive, he's going to say some pretty outlandish things. And this includes thumbing the eye of who is supposed to be the most powerful man in the world. And we know that Trump is just going to sit back and take it. So he's just going to go into Gaza City. He's just going to do what he said he's going to do. And I think we are, again, having some technical difficulties here, guys. So I'm going to have to pull this clip. Hang on for 1 second. We're going to pull it, and then I'm going to upload it one more time. Sometimes when you do live streams, as you know, the technical difficulties can run amok. And I'm by myself tonight. I am hosting and producing. So I'm doing both. Not looking for a hearty handshake or a pat on the back, but this is not easy work sometimes. So we do want to make sure that we get this right. So let's get this up there again.
נשיא טראמפ
את התמיכה של הנשיא טראמפ, גם במהלכי המלחמה, גם בהחלטה שלי להיכנס לעיר עזה, גם בגיוס שלו של העולם הערבי, כדי להוציא את החטופים שלנו בלחץ צבאי שלנו, בלחץ מדיני שלנו.
So now he's still talking about the hostages. I thought we just had a peace agreement. I thought the hostages were free. Or was that a lie? So I guess they're not free. They're freed enough so that they could come back and do it again. That's what they did. It's never a question of, will this end? As long as this man has power, it will never end. And that's why Jen said, and I quote, there will be 2 million dead Palestinians in the desert as long as this regime and this genocidal state is able to continue to function. And that's only addressing Gaza. That's not even addressing the West Bank, which Hamas doesn't even exist in. So when anybody tries to sell you on the bullshit about what this genocidal state is up to and what they have always been up to, these lying sacks of shit. Now, believe it or not, he's not even the worst. Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, they're even worse than he is. Those are the type of people that I know would be really, I mean, do you want to talk about ready, willing, and able to drop a nuclear weapon? They would do it without hesitation. And that's why this is such a dangerous situation here. He's got more to say.
הבאנו את 20 החטופים החיים, דבר שאף אחד לא האמין שיהיה. ועכשיו במאמץ שאנחנו עושים, כולל בשיחה הערב עם מרקו רוביו, וקודם לכן עם סגן הנשיא ואנס, כדי לקדם את היעדים של פירוז עזה ופירוק החמאס מנשקו ועוד דברים חשובים לנו. אז זה מה שחשוב, אני חושב שמה שאתה רואה של שיתוף הפעולה בינינו, בין שותפים, זה, אני חושב, ברכה עצומה למדינת ישראל.
Hopefully not for much longer. That is the goal. The goal is to make sure that the state of Israel will no longer exist. It will be Palestine from the river to the sea, and they shall be free. I'm always fascinated by the commentary of ignorant people like Tim Hewitt. Who said I want to live in a Muslim society? Have you ever been to a mosque? They're actually the least preachy people alive. In fact, they're the most welcoming people. If you've ever been to a mosque, let me tell you, you want to talk about a rainbow coalition of all different cultures, of all different colors and creeds. That's a mosque. And I've been to plenty. Ones that are from all different parts of the Middle East, Africa, the United States. Let me assure you, you have been fed a hill of BS for several decades because it's great for business. That's it. And you want to know why our country hates Muslims more than anything else? Because they are a very successful culture. And they don't bow at the altar of capitalism the way that the Judeo-Christian alliance does. See, if it was good for business, and if Muslims just showed fealty towards capitalism at all times, they would have no problem with them. But that's not their culture. They pray 5 times a day because they genuinely want to have a centered life around the teachings of Allah and Muhammad. And they revere Adam, Moses, and Jesus. I don't know how many people, Americans in general, actually know how revered Jesus is in Muslim culture and faith. They probably don't know that. This, to me, also speaks to a greater issue here, because it is also imperative upon us to try to become as welcoming. Yeah, that's another great point. Another great point about Muslim culture is that they don't drink alcohol. They don't partake in the many sins of American and Western culture that cause so much of the grief and hostility in our country. Think about how much better off the United States as a whole would be if we practice smoking cannabis to the extent that we smoke alcohol or drink alcohol. That went over my head. But flip it and think about how much of a difference that would make. Heck, even if we just had a society that just didn't have hard alcohol, if we just had wine and beer and champagne, I think for the most part, we would be a heck of a lot better off. In fact, that's what prohibition was really supposed to be. It was supposed to be a ban on hard liquor, and they went too far and they took everything. If they had left wine and beer and champagne alone, it might have held. There would have still been a black market for hard liquor, but it would have been nothing like what ended up happening as a result of, Murder Inc., the Chicago outfit, Al Capone, and the like. But everything that Israel represents is everything that our culture is at its worst. And that is the difference. The worst shadow of the United States is reflective in somebody like Milikowski. Because so many people are having to come to terms with just how evil and depraved our culture really is. And Muslim culture isn't depraved. And that drives them crazy. They're also much, much higher educated than the average American is. No, Richard, we won't. Islam is in nobody's business anyway. And you're about to find out just how dangerous and scary Muslims really are. Because you're going to have a Muslim mayor, unless somebody kills him, in the most powerful city in the world. So we'll see exactly what he's going to do and how dangerous it's going to become. And I wonder if you would change your tune if, in fact, positive things started to happen in New York City. We are going to talk about Zoran on Monday when Jen is here, because he gave a very, very impressive speech and rebuttal to the insane level of bigotry that is getting thrown in his direction right now as he is on the verge of becoming the next mayor of New York, the most progressive mayor since Fiero LaGuardia, which was over 80 years ago. So it's a long time coming, 3 generations worth. But I can assure you, just as the chat reflects, as we approach 750 live viewers, it's the few that stand out that are upset. The overwhelming majority recognize things for what they are. And while New York and a number of other places celebrate, not as a whole, but, have a swath of people that support the Zionist cause, their ideology is on the way out. It's not going to last, guys. I know they think it'll last, and maybe it'll last for a little longer than we would like it to. But make no mistake, this will not hold. It hasn't held for, shortly after what transpired on October 7th, so many people became aware of all of the BS that was the Zionist state.